Hello there and welcome to my guide for painting Cosmo and Howard the Duck from the Marvel Zombies Guardians of the Galaxy set. As you can see, the first thing I've done is sprayed them with some matte white spray from Colourforge. Then, starting with Howard, I painted his suit with some Mournfang brown. Then, for Cosmo's fur, I used some Steel Legion drab. Then both those areas were given a wash with some Army Painter soft tone. Once that wash has dried, I then relayered the Mournfang brown, making sure I avoided any recesses. This was followed by a 50-50 mix of Mournfang brown and Scrag brown for the first highlight. And the second was Scrag brown just by itself. To highlight Cosmo's fur, I used a 50-50 mix of Steel Legion drab and Wraithbone. This was then followed by that same mix but at a 70-30 ratio. For Cosmo's suit and Howard's shirt, I used some grey cere. I also painted the little book in Howard's hand as well. For the base coat of Howard's feathers, I used some Wraithbone. To highlight the grey cere white, I used a 50-50 mix of grey cere and matte white. This was then followed by matte white just by itself. Don't forget to paint Howard's shirt and the book as well. For Cosmo's collar and Howard's tie, I used some Mephiston red, which I then washed with some Carroburg crimson. While that wash dried, I went ahead and started to highlight Howard's feathers, and for that I used a 50-50 mix of Wraithbone and matte white, followed by matte white just by itself. To highlight the red, I used a 50-50 mix of Mephiston red and Evil Sunz scarlet. And then for a second highlight, I used Evil Sunz scarlet just by itself. I then used some arithmetic blue to paint Cosmo's helmet. Howard's feet and beak were painted with Avalanche Sunset. And both of those were washed with some Cassandori yellow. While those washes dry, I'm going to use some Abaddon black to paint the eyes. I'm also going to paint the pen and the inside of the notebook. And before I forget, I'm going to use some Iron Hand steel just to paint the metal rungs on that notebook. Now, on the player card for Cosmo, his eyes are black, so just for Howard, I'm going to use some matte white to paint his eyes. And then dot the pupils with Abaddon black. I'm then going to use a 50-50 mix of Avalanche Sunset and matte white to highlight the beak and the feet. And this will be followed by the same mix, but at a 70-30 ratio. Then I'm going to use a little bit of Nuln Oil on those metal rings on the notebook. Lastly, I'm going to highlight any black on him with some Corvus black. This is basically his pen and the inside of the notebook. Then I'm going to use a 50-50 mix of arithmetic blue and matte white to highlight Cosmo's helmet. And then to make it look a little bit more reflective, I'm going to use matte white just by itself. For the bases, I'm going to use Dryad bark on all of the muddy areas. And the stones will be painted with some Dawnstone. Then the whole base will be dry brushed with some Carrick stone. Next, we're going to paint the rims with Abaddon black. And then wash the base down with some watered down Agrax Earthshade. Once that wash has dried, that's these guys finished, and I've got to say they were a very enjoyable pair to paint, super fast as well. In fact, they only took roughly about an hour and a half to paint for the pair. As ever, Cosmo have done a really fun job with all the little bystanders that will be eaten throughout the games of Marvel Zombies, and I have to say, these are two of my favourite models that I've actually painted for the range so far. If you use this guide and you found it useful, which I really do hope you did, give the channel a subscribe, have a look on the channel as well. There's plenty more Marvel Zombies video, and there's plenty more to come because I've still got quite a lot left. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Goodbye for now.